Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. My guest tonight, husband, father, overall family man, gym owner, and more recently, IFBB professional bodybuilder as of the universe of 2024. He is my guest, Mr. Jay Doherty. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Jay, again, it's an honor. I know we had the pleasure of meeting very quickly at the Uncaged Fitness a couple of months ago. But I'm going to be honest with you. I know you competed as a middleweight, but I wouldn't have guessed that for that short interaction when I ran into you. You're a little tank, and I mean that respectively.
Yeah, thanks. Most people are surprised when they learn that I've gone down that far into the middleweights. But I always felt it was just I've probably gone a little too far each time, but I always felt it was just giving me a little competitive advantage being at the top end of a weight class versus coming in at the lower end of a light heavy. So I've always kind of, sucked down just a little further.
Yep. And obviously it paid off this time around.
Finally, yeah.
So Jay, take us back the week of the universe. I mean, how are you feeling? How are you looking the week of? And then we'll kind of walk through the day of. Like, what's going through your mind? How you feeling? How you looking?
Yeah, so that week, I felt pretty good. I felt, kind of ahead of schedule that week. I kind of have to take it back about, 6 months earlier to my previous show back in October. I made a lot of potential last minute mistakes in that show that helped me to kind of make the peak week of the universe a lot better. I actually almost pulled out of the show previously, about 6-9 months earlier, 2 days beforehand. Just nothing was working. Everything went wrong. It felt like, and I was able to kind of pull it all back together over the last 48 hours, and kind of that experience, fast forward to the, week of the universe made that prep, that week, that peak week, just, I kind of knew all the variables. I knew, how things should go this time, without freaking out, and, it all kind of worked out. So kind of things going wrong, 9 months or so earlier kind of made that peak, the universe peak week, a little more palatable and predictable. So it kind of all worked out. And, it was, but when you go into a show like that, you hope for the best. Obviously, you want a place, you you have your dream of winning but you never know who's going to show up. So, you just try to focus on you, and, you try your best not to stay on Instagram and look at all these other people and compare yourself and this and that, because you just don't know who's going to show up. So you don't want to get your hopes up in one sense. You don't want to, get your hopes down either by seeing someone being like, oh, I got no chance,
Yep.
So, but it was a good week. It led into it, and having that, especially going down into a middleweight where I kind of don't belong, almost like you said, being able to weigh in on a Wednesday and compete on a Saturday versus a local show, a weigh in and compete on the same day, also made all the difference in the world for me.
So you weigh in Wednesday, and obviously you make the cap of 176. I think it's the one like 176 and a quarter still.
Correct.
So on Saturday, would you step up? Because I'm sure you probably put on a couple of pounds, probably carved up a little bit.
Well, So according to their scale, believe it or not, on Wednesday I weighed in at 169 and a half.
Wow.
Which, I think my scale is about 171, somewhere in that range. But I wanted to give myself a little leeway. Didn't want to put anything to chance. Didn't want to be overweight. But so I stepped on. I woke up the morning of the show at 177. So on my scale, about 6 pounds heavier. So definitely took those 2 days to fill out, which I didn't have in a local show. The ability to, you only have that morning. I was the other shows. Those local shows, I'm making weight by ounces. So definitely having those extra few days in order to fill out is great for the physique. Sitting around in a hotel room for 2 days, 3 days is kind of boring, but with nothing to do, but just kind of waiting. But it definitely helped to fill the physique out and kind of get that energy back and some life back into the body.
So the week of the show, there's two schools of thoughts that I hear is like the Saturday prior, if you look spot on, people don't change a thing. They just keep eating and just cruising till the show. And you have other people that, you play around a little bit. You're going to carb deplete, carb load, play with the salt, play with the water. Do you kind of manipulate? Like, what is your game plan the week of? Or do you kind of constantly playing around a little bit?
Yeah. So I've kind of always done a similar thing. So the Saturday before the week before, my Saturday is always my last leg day.
Sure.
Sunday, I start like I'll call it like water loading on Sunday. You know, I'm usually about 1.5 gallons of water on a regular basis. I'll up it to about 2 gallons Sunday through, you know, Thursday.
Okay.
I'll carb deplete after breakfast. I'll have carbs on breakfast on Sunday. Then I'll carb deplete Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Okay.
And then half a Wednesday. Once I weighed in Wednesday, then I went and ate.
Gotcha.
So I do a depletion. I'm not a heavy carb guy on a regular basis. So, you know, I am kind of carb depleted, you know, a lot, as you know, during prep anyways, but I do pull them down to essentially 0 for a few days. And then, like I said, you know, once I weighed in, I started refeeding and kind of filling back up. And then, you know, I tend to cut the protein, up the carbs for those few days, keep the water high as the carbs are high, and then, you know, kind of taper down and cut that water out on Friday. You know, I have a lower amount on Friday, tapering it down and probably ending about 8 o'clock at night, kind of keeping it to minimal, if any.
So Saturday arrives. Obviously, you're looking at the competition. Like, be honest here, what's going through your head? Are you thinking, I got it? Or are you kind of nervous? Like, what's going through your head?
So when I got there, you know, again, you never want to get, you know, ahead of yourself. You never want to get ahead of yourself. But when I was kind of scoping everything out, I felt right off the bat it was between me and one other person. And very different looks, which always scares me when we have people with 2 completely different looks. It's like, what do the judges want? You know, I'm kind of a, you know, more of a shredded guy. You know, I go for coming in very lean, whereas this other individual had a lot more kind of fullness to his muscle bellies, but maybe not as lean as me. And I've seen it go both ways. I've beat bigger guys being more conditioned, and I've lost to bigger guys that were just fuller and rounder and a little less conditioned. So it's, you know, it's in the judge's hands, unfortunately, kind of what they prefer. But I did think it was between myself and one other person kind of, you know, backstage. And once we got on there, you know, immediately was kind of between the 2 of us. And, you know, thankfully I was able to take it.
Love it.
But I actually have kept in touch with him, and I'm pretty sure we'll see him come back. He's going to do the universe again this year. And I would be shocked if he doesn't take the middleweight class, because he looked great. He does look great. And I know he'll come back next year even better.
Jay, what's his name? Give him a quick plug so I can keep my eyes open.
His last name is Hunt. I think I forget his first name, but great kid, great physique. You know, and that's the other part, being a middleweight. Sometimes I'm by no means tall. I'm only 5'8", but being in a middleweight class, I'm tall for a middleweight class. And sometimes I stand out and look a little off, you know, a little not so dense as the other guys that are kind of more short and compact and kind of can look more muscular, where I can kind of look tall and lanky, believe it or not, at 5'8". So you kind of worry too on how it's going to, you know, translate to the judges in that aspect. But I've always kind of gone with the conditioning game, you know, so thankfully it paid off.
Yeah, I'm more like person myself. Like I tend to think that the more shredded you are, but like you said, it's a gamble. Any judge can pick whatever it is. Like you said, is it big and full, or is it sliced and diced? And obviously sliced and diced is what got you that day.
Yeah.
So you did classic, and then you did open bodybuilding. Take out your placing. Did you want to get the card in one area over the other, or were you just kind of whatever I get?
I mean, truth be told, I really wanted it in both.
Okay.
And I missed it by 1 in classic. I missed it by 1 spot. I came in second.
Yeah.
In the 40s, I believe. I came in second. So I would have liked it in both, but you know, walking into that day, you're just happy as could be to have 1. You know, I mean,
Definitely.
You know, so I wasn't complaining by any stretch, but yeah, it would have been nice to have 1 in each, but. You know, the other kid looked great, you know, and again, you know, I thought I did have it. Honestly, I thought I had it. And then when you kind of go back and look at the pictures, he definitely had a better structure for sure, with great conditioning as well. So
So when they announced your name as the winner, did it dawn on you immediately? Was it like out of body or like what? I mean, talk me through that immediate moment there.
Honestly, no. I
Okay.
was so caught up in. I'm a very competitive person, former athlete,
Yep.
and I was so caught up in the structure of the show, and basically, hey, you, you got to move right on to the next thing. Hey, you got the overalls coming up shortly. It was almost like you didn't even have time to process. And after prejudging, I was very certain I had the 40 and over class.
Okay.
The 35 and over, yeah, both classes. I won 35 and 40.
Oh, okay.
Based on the call outs, I knew. So it was kind of anticlimactic because you do kind of know, kind of where you're finishing, prejudging, you kind of do know. And I was so caught up in, delusionally being like, okay, I got the overall now. Let's go for the overall, which I
Yeah.
had no chance in once we got out there. But it kind of you get caught, the competitive spirit catches up, and the other part too is I'm very much a manifester. So
Okay.
I had seen myself 100,000s of times on the treadmill every morning winning this show.
Love
So,
it.
so when it kind of happened, it's kind of it does kind of take the fun out of it to a degree. I mean, I believe in manifesting. I believe that's what helped me get there. But
Hmm.
in the moment, you kind of lose a little appreciation of the moment because it's like and you've almost lived it 1,000 times already, and it's like, oh, of course, this is the outcome. This is what I have been seeing for months
Yeah.
on end now. So it did kind of make it a little anticlimactic, but I think it kind of hit me, days after, a week after, kind of like, wow, I really did it.
Has things changed at all now that you have those big four letters, the IFBB? Has anybody kind of given you a different look, different respect, or what?
Not overly. I think part of what changes is, you get it and you're like, oh, this is amazing. And then you start looking back and you're like, oh, now what?
Yeah.
I basically, am I retired now? I can't compete in the NPC anymore. So, what do I do? You go into the IFBB and it's like, you look at these guys and, in these shows and it's, you're like, well, I can't step on stage with those guys,
Yeah. Yeah.
So is it kind of double-edged sword? How great I got this thing, but did it force me into early retirement? So it's kind of a little figuring out what's next. Do we call it quits or do we keep pushing forward? And answer being is I kind of just wanted. I hate dealing with regrets. Don't want to have second guess things. Look back later and say, "Hey, I wish I had tried." So, I think realistically, obviously sticking in the Masters
Yeah. Yeah.
versus an Open or 212 or even Classic, Open Classic. So I think sticking in the Masters IFBB show and going with Classic Physique as well, just because I just don't
Sure.
have the size to compete even on a 212 level. If I'm lucky, I'll be on stage in the low 180s,
Okay.
and these guys are, I don't care if they're 40, 45 years, 50 years old. These guys at 212 are big guys. So I think,
Yeah.
we'll throw my hat in the Classic, see if we can't make something happen that way and at least get up there, but I definitely want to at least give it one go, at least attempt to give it one go.
Well, let's say you kind of have to owe it to yourselves because I hear that a lot of people they get the pro card and they hang it up because they whatever many years and whatnot. I respect the hell out of them for it, but it's like, okay, yes, you're now a small fish in the big pond again. You got to at least try it a few times. As we mentioned, you've got a couple of kids just to say, look, dad stepped on stage next to this known person, this known person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like I said, I was a competitive athlete all growing up. And, one thing I did, all through high school, I had a goal. I wanted to, I played soccer in high school. I wanted to be an All-American. I wanted to
Okay.
be one of the top recruits in the country. I wanted to get a, scholarship to the best Division I programs out there. And I worked very hard and I accomplished all of that. And once I did that, I kind of tapped myself on the shoulder and said, "Good job," and
Okay.
didn't really reset any type of goals.
Yeah.
When I got to college, I was competitive, but I never really reset goals of, okay, what's next? Now, okay, now I want to be a starter. I want to be all league. I want to be this. I want to get drafted. I didn't do any of that. And
Okay.
I look back now with some really big regrets on that of just, not resetting goals and kind of just exhaling and enjoying, hey, wow, you did a great job. Look at what you accomplished, and kind of living off the past for a minute. And I don't know, it's kind of always haunted me, to
Yeah,
a
yeah,
bit. So I was like, I just don't want to do that again this time around. I want to be able to at least look back, and say I tried, and reset some goals. Accomplish them or not really doesn't
sure.
matter. At least just say, at least we give it a shot.
Being a soccer player, do you think that kind of gave you I don't know how I'm going to say this, leg up on your leg development? Because you've got phenomenal quads, phenomenal legs. And I know soccer players, either they're stringy or they've just got like tree trunks.
Yeah. I definitely think it helped. I think, genetically, I've always had some dominant features. I was always, to be honest with you, always a smaller, skinnier kid, but
Okay.
a muscular, skinnier kid.
Yep.
I only graduated high school about 145 pounds, but I was still always a kid that had quads, abs, chest, and tris. I
Okay.
might not have other body parts. For years, even my first show, I didn't have, didn't train hamstrings, didn't do anything with them, but I always had some dominant body parts for sure. Quads being one of them. And of course, yeah, definitely the soccer, and definitely helped, I'm sure, with that.
What made you turn more intensely to the gym, to weights, and then, eventually what led you to the stage?
So I actually was, to be honest, all through high school, never once stepped in a weight room once in high school.
Okay.
I played soccer, I played sports, I played soccer, I played other sports as well. And I'll be honest with you, and I tell this story to a lot of people, especially now owning a gym, because being like, hey, I understand, I get where you're coming from. I was too intimidated to go into a gym.
Oh, okay.
I had friends that would go into the gym, especially a lot of the football players and this and that. And I was always extremely good at all the sports that I played. I was always successful at everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have the balls to not be successful, to go in the gym, and start out as a newbie and have them, kind of kick my ass for a few months. So I kind of shied away from it, to be honest with you. It wasn't until I went to UConn, and they took one look at me and said, "Hey, you got to put some weight. You got to put some weight on if you're looking to play in the Big East here." So,
Okay.
that's when I kind of got into the weight room, and it happened pretty quickly. I mean, like I said, I definitely genetically had, a muscular build, even though I was slight. And it took I put on about 20 pounds my first year.
Wow.
Of school. And it took a lot of eating to do that as well.
Yep.
Actually, I ate a full pizza every night before I went to bed, for 9 months. But without gaining any body fat, though. I was
I was going to say, you're one of those guys had a pizza, and next morning you have like an extra ab from 6 to 8 or whatever.
We have testing, preseason testing every year, and I think I weighed 152 my freshman year at 5.5% body fat, and I weighed in my senior at 185 at 6%. So, so it was, but it took a lot of eating, because you're just burning through everything playing soccer. You're running all day long.
Yep.
So, once I stopped playing soccer, I dabbled a little in a couple lower level professional leagues. And once I stopped playing soccer, and stopped running, most importantly, and training that way every day, my weight spiked up a ton. I think it was like 185 to almost 220.
Wow.
Not the prettiest 220 either. It was a pretty chunky, chipmunky looking 220. But it happened pretty quick once I kind of, all that additional aerobic activity was cut out.
Yeah.
And then once soccer and sports in general were taken from me, or, kind of just no longer, an option, I really needed something to kind of replace that. And that's what the gym became for me. It was definitely just, something to, to keep active, and to, keep, individually pushing at something.
Gotcha. So were you making your strides, and did someone tap you on the shoulder and say you should do a show, or did you think, oh, maybe I should, like, what was the genesis of stepping on stage?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely, people saw, a physique there, and everybody was like, oh, you should. And, I'm be honest with you, I'm somewhat of an introvert. I'm somewhat definitely, not an on-stage person. Still can't stand getting on stage. It's probably the worst of the whole process. I'm definitely kind of in the trenches, in my, in the dark kind of worker type of guy. So, it was always in the back of my mind, like, God, I would like to do this, would like to see how I could do. And I just never had just never could pull the trigger and do it.
Okay.
I even did, when I turned 30, I even did like a trial, prep with
Mhm.
no end in sight. Actually, the end in sight was Thanksgiving dinner. That was my, my prep finished on Thanksgiving, and I just splurged and had Thanksgiving dinner. But I put up some, at the time there was no Instagram, there was no social media. It was
Yeah, yeah.
message. There was the message boards, and I was involved in a bunch of those. And at my time, I had PJ Braun was coaching me, and I had
Okay.
he and I put some before and pictures up. I want to say on maybe RX Muscle or one of those boards at the time. I forget which board it was. And I got a lot of positive feedback, being like, "Wow, like that's a pretty good transformation. Like you're stage ready." And so
Yeah.
I was like, "Well, maybe I should do this." But it didn't. It took me until it was 2013, or my first time I got on stage. I was 36 years old.
Okay.
So it took a long time. I'm about almost 15 years
Yeah.
before I got the balls to do it. Got up there. It surprisingly did better than I expected. I ended up coming in second in my class of a class of about 16. Actually, back then the classes were massive.
Wow.
Classes were really big back then.
Yeah, yeah.
There wasn't classic back then. There wasn't any of the other things. It was pretty much just bodybuilding. So you had everybody out there.
Were you a bantam or a lightweight then? Do you remember?
I was a middleweight then too.
Oh,
Yeah,
middleweight then. Okay.
I've actually never been anything but a middleweight. Just
Oh, interesting.
yeah. So and I did well. And I placed second, a deserved second. The guy that came in first, he was a seasoned guy, and just knew what he was doing, outposed me,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everything like that. And I was, it was close. And that was supposed to be it, though. That was going to be the end. It was kind of just a bucket list thing. Hey, I
Okay.
did it. I tried. Great. And then that was in October of 2013. 3 months later, in January, I fell down a flight of stairs, ruptured my patella tendon,
Oh, geez.
and didn't walk for a year.
Wow.
And so, finally, I was out of the gym for an entire year. Finally started getting back in, and because of that, it kind of gave me like, can I do it again? Can I come back from this? And I had never planned on competing again, but then it kind of gave me like, hey, I want to prove to myself I can get back, and do this. So that kind of started pushing me to kind of get back into the gym, and it was a slow progress getting back into the gym. You'd think you'd be itching
I can
back,
imagine.
but after being out a year, you get really lazy, so
Yeah.
it was a lot harder than I thought to kind of even just get the motivation to get back on track. And then 2000, so that was 2014. I was out a whole year. 2015 started training again. 2019, I competed again.
Okay.
And just prior to, and I think it was like June or July. It was, summer of 19, I believe. But 6 months earlier, I had given my kids for Christmas vision boards.
Okay.
They're like, "What the hell is this, Dad?" So I kind of was trying to explain the vision board thing. Hey, you know what? Manifest it. You believe it. You can, you see it. You can achieve it.
Yep.
And they kind of looked at me, with cross-eyed, being like, "You're crazy." So I kind of said, "Hey, I'll show you."
Good for you.
And they said, okay. I said, I'm going to pick a show 6 months from now, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to win it. And they're like, okay. So, and that was what kind of really prompted the next show in the summer of 19. And
NPC Connecticut Grand Prix, if I'm looking right now.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And I had my goal to them was to say, I'm going to go win my class this time. I'm going to go win the class, that I didn't do last time. I'm going to go and I'm going to win it. And I ended up winning the overall in that class.
Wow.
So
it's rare for middleweight. That's good. Rare for middleweight.
Exactly. And it's funny because every time I go out for an overall, it's actually the most relaxed I ever am, is because there's no pressure on the middleweight, which I think actually helps me in a lot of ways too, because it's just like, I'm not supposed to be out here, not supposed to win this, so let's just have fun. So I went and won that show, which I was kind of a surprise to me. I didn't, I
Okay.
didn't see that one coming. And then that kind of snowballed into, hey, wait a minute, maybe there's something here, maybe.
Okay.
So I 3 weeks later after that show, I actually went and did the universe in 2019. And I think I placed sixth or seventh in middleweights in that show.
Okay.
I did okay, nothing.
Well, your first national show too. I mean, you can't expect much.
Yeah. I was happy with what I brought. But again, I found that each kind of step along the way of the process and shows has been a massive learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like you have to go through the show once to kind of understand, because even in the universe, they run it differently. They run you out individually first,
Sure.
and then they put you into, I was totally unprepared. I didn't even know how the logistics of how the show worked. So you kind of, have to go through. For me, I have to kind of go through it and figure it out once until like, okay, now I know what to expect next time.
Yeah.
So it was a good experience. And then I did nationals. It was during the COVID when I did nationals.
2020, it looks like.
Yeah, it was. So
Okay.
the next fall, I did. I was still qualified, so I did the nationals. Great experience. I ended up getting second call out. I think I don't even know what I placed there. 10th, maybe something like that. I forget. 10th, 11th.
More competition in that show, like in the middleweight.
Oh, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, I think the class depth was like there was about 30 something in my class.
Jeez. Okay.
And again, that's where I really kind of felt like I was out of place in terms of being a middleweight. Everybody else is about five. I literally looked down the aisle and nobody was above my chin. Like I just looked out of place. I was in shape. I was really shredded, but kind of didn't have enough mass left over for these, even to hang with these guys. At
Okay.
5'2", 175, it just is a different look.
Yeah.
But again, a great experience, and kind of seeing, hey, if you're going to stay in this, you got to put on some more. You got to come with a little better package. This is no longer a diet show. You can kind of get away. I feel like you can get away with that in a local level. If you're just shredded, it just pops out so much on a stage, and it's hard to deny that. But on a national level, these guys, no one's showing up out of shape,
Yeah.
And then you put together some, some size, some symmetry, some fullness with some pretty good shape. And there are a lot of these guys that are tough to beat. So it kind of showed me I gotta have a little more balance too. I know I'm always going to be more of like a condition guy versus a size guy, but I definitely got to put a little more size on, a little more fullness on. So kind of worked on that for a few years, and then made that, kind of came back around. Would have been 2023, fall of 23. Did another local show to requalify for a national show. And it's a funny story with that one too, is I actually did that show. It was going to be the last show.
Okay.
This is it. I was backstage talking to people. I've met somebody at this time. I've met everybody over the years. We all kind of know each other. We know the coaches. We know the expediters, and I'm shaking hands with everybody, saying, "Hey, it's been a great ride. This is great." And I'm so loose as a result of it, which really helps again.
Are people looking at you saying, "Yeah, BS, we'll see you next year," kind of thing? Or
no. I mean, I'm getting older. Like they could, but that was my intention. Was this is it? I did that show, and I did it with my wife. Actually, we both did that with.
Okay.
It was so kind of. She had wanted to do a show after having a child that she had tried during COVID and got canceled. A bunch of shows got canceled, so we kind of decided to do this one together. I was going to help we prep together and did it together, and it was supposed to be it. And with very little expectation outside of, I hope to win my class for sure. I know at this point, competitive wise, I should win my class. But I ended up winning the overall at that one. And again, very surprised to, somewhat, like as a middleweight, it's just not something you kind of think is going to happen. And then a couple people backstage, coaches especially, were like, hey, you can't stop.
Yeah, yeah.
You got it. You just give this one more train. You know, I mean, like you got something here. Like it started to come together. I definitely felt like the conditioning and the fullness started coming a little more. The muscle maturity, been doing it for a long time now.
Okay.
So the look was definitely improving. So they're just like, just give it one more, just think about it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what kind of led me to do the universe, was just kind of like, well, you know what? These people that I respect are saying, give this one more chance. So I'm going to listen to them and give it one more chance. So, I've actually gone back and thanked a lot of them after. Thanks for saying those things
Love
after
it.
that show, because I never would have shown up and never would have had the chance at the pro card or any of that.
I love it. So was there a point where you said to yourself, look, I've got something, I'm going to go for my pro card, or was it just as you were moving along year by year?
Yeah, I think it was just, I don't think I ever realistically thought it would come to that. No.
Okay.
I think going into the universe this last time, I was like, well, maybe, I mean,
Yep.
again, you never know who's going to show up or who's not going to show up. I wasn't like, oh, I think I'm going to show up and embarrass myself. It wasn't in that kind, but I just didn't know what was going to happen. But I definitely didn't want to get, it's kind of a funny balance. I didn't want to get my hopes up, but at the same time, like I said, I had kind of envisioned my head winning this thing 1,000 times over. But once, like I said, and once I got backstage, I was like, oh, I think I got a chance at this. And then, during prejudging, when they started moving you around and you kind of had a very good idea of where you were, I was like, oh shit, I did it. Even my wife texted me, when I was backstage, and she's like, you just won. And I'm like, it's still the morning. Like, it's not over. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, I texted her back. I said, job's not finished. And I said, let's even at lunch, I'm like, let's not talk about it. Like, let's just go into the night. Don't jinx anything. Because it was definitely, you could feel the reality was about to happen. It was like,
You're humble and you're a realist, and I love it though, because I mean, it's always interesting. People want to go in. People have that mindset. They want to go in and win. But then if you're a realist, then you got the naysayer saying, well, then why are you doing this if you don't want to win? I'm a huge Lee Priest fan. Okay. I've met Lee in person. I've hung out with him for a little bit. I've read his book. And he always said, look, when have you ever seen a guy at 5'4" at 200 pounds become Mr. Olympia? He's like, I just want to go have fun, make some friends. So it's that fine divide, it's like you should have the winning mentality, but in the same boat, you're a realist, which I can appreciate.
Yeah. I mean, I think I go through my prep with the mindset of we're doing this to win.
Yeah.
For sure. So I'm not going to give myself any mental breaks in terms of, we're probably not going to win this anyway, so go have that cookie today. Like, that's, we're going in, we're going to win. We're competing to win. But like I said, understandably, especially in a NPC show, and even some of these, I'm seeing in some of these IFBB shows, you don't know who's going to show up. So it's like, I've seen shows in the past in which, I grew up in Massachusetts, and when I was in my 20s, I'd go to some shows and stuff just to kind of see what this was all about. And I remember some of these guys who had just these small little shows, but you have to come requalify for the nationals. So I remember being in a small little rinky-dink show, but Troy Alves shows up. I don't know if you remember Troy Alves, and I was just like, what is this? I mean, he looked, and I think he turned pro within 60 days of that. And I'm just like, you just don't know. And I'm sure everybody else there thought they were going to win that show that day. And then this guy shows up, and it's like, you just never know. So it's like, you don't want to get your hopes up too high, because that could happen to anybody.
That's it. Jay, how long are your preps generally on average?
On the short side, to be honest with you.
What's short, 12 or what's short?
Yeah, like 11. I consider my prep to be the last 11 weeks. I'll take 3 to 4 weeks before that, maybe just kind of
like ease in a little bit,
slowly cleaning some things up. But I don't really kick it into gear until 11 weeks out, in terms of cardio and all that, in terms of calorie restriction. It's kind of that 11. I kind of do more of a sprint, an 11-week sprint versus. I've done longer ones early on, And actually a few preps ago, I think I might have tried like a 14 or 15, and it 4 weeks out, I was just things were just churning too fast.
Okay.
So I was like, it's just kind of how my body works. It just seems like that 11 weeks is fine, because if I do it too long, I get to these points that my body won't stop. I would just
Yeah. Okay.
I'm burning through everything. I'm losing fat, but losing muscle, and everything's just disappearing on me. Sometimes when I let that train out of the station, it's hard to bring it back. So
Okay.
I've kind of found that sweet spot for me to be around 11 weeks of
So
real training, of real prepping.
if you're behind the 8 ball a little bit, are you more manipulate the food to cardio up a little bit? Is there a method to your madness?
Um, I I used to be a let's manipulate the food guy, and
Okay.
now I try. Like I said, I try to keep the food as high as long as I can. And I
Okay.
use it for with me. I use that term relative. I'm not a high food. Yeah, even my off season, my food isn't a ton, but
Yeah.
I definitely have learned to not be too afraid of food. I think at one point in time, my first preps, it was like, you know, like hey, I was supposed to eat his whitefish and asparagus for 10 weeks, and he, like you said, you just end up stringy and flat and with no pop to you. So I've kind of learned to try to keep food in as much as possible,
Okay.
um, and manipulate other things. Again, I try not to do. I try to find the balance now.
Sure.
And the other thing I've done over the last few preps that have benefited me a ton, is be a little more flexible in terms.
Hmm.
I was very rigid. To a fault. I would have a prep laid out ahead of time, and I wouldn't deviate. Well, things happen, and things, if your body says this isn't working, and I just
Yeah.
wouldn't deviate. Hey, I'm going to work this plan. And now this time around, the last few times, I've really focused more on recovery and sleep, and
Okay.
allowing myself, hey, it's okay. Instead of having 6 meals today, hey, I got the chance to sleep in an extra 2 hours. I'm going to sleep those extra 2 hours, and I'm only going to have 5 meals today. It is what it is. And that 2 hours extra of sleep and the recovery is actually going to be more beneficial to me than that extra meal. And I used to stay up if the meals were all screwed up during the day and I got pushed back. I used to stay up to midnight sitting around for an extra 2 hours just to eat that last meal. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
that's just crazy. Just go to bed. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be, exhausted at 10 o'clock at night, ready for bed, but you still got one meal. You got to wait another 2 hours. And I'm like, this is nuts. Just like get that extra sleep. That one meal is not going to make or break, the day of, but that sleep will probably benefit you, 10 times over.
Be careful now, because if people watching this, bodybuilders watch this, you can get hate mail. How can you only do 5 meals on a certain day? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. I mean, I've definitely helped us, prioritize sleep, because obviously during prep, sleep isn't great. So if
Hmm.
we're able to get some, or if I have a day, on a weekend that for some reason I don't have to get up first thing or this or that, I'm like, okay, I'm sleeping the extra 2 hours. I don't care, take advantage of when I can. And I've also, like I said beforehand, was, oh no, you got to do cardio every day, this time fasted, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
And, in doing so, I've burnt my legs out, lost size on my legs.
Hmm.
As you get older, leg size is the first thing to go anyways, even
Yep.
during a prep. So it's, I've kind of learned to, pull back around leg days, don't do cardio, the morning after a leg day, I no longer do cardio. I just pull it out completely. Which, if you had told me that 6 years ago, I would have been like, you're crazy. You got to do cardio every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just focus a little more on that recovery aspect, whether it be sleeping, central nervous system recovery, adrenals, all those. Just trying to get that and stay a little fresher and have the body be a little fresher. And it seems to has helped a lot.
Jay, you bring up recovery a few times, talking about sleep. Do you do anything additionally, whether it's massage, cold plunge, cupping, cryotherapy, any of that type of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not big into the cold plunge thing. I just can't
I'm
do
not either, but I haven't tried
it.
it. So I
Yeah,
can't.
I
I can't.
can't. I can't
Okay.
do it. I do get body work done.
Okay.
Probably a little more so during prep than not. So I definitely work on that. That's for sure.
Gotcha. So when you wake up in the morning now, you mentioned your knee injury many years ago. How do you feel when you wake up in the morning? Do you feel your age or creaking
Oh,
and moaning,
yeah,
or?
every day I feel my age. uh, yeah, no, I mean, my wife laughs at me because she's like, I can't get up off the couch. Like everything hurts. And I'm just like, but I don't know a lot of time in the last 30 years, I haven't had aches and pains. I just, whether
Yeah.
being an athlete or just this or that, I'm kind of just used to it. But yeah, everything hurts. It definitely feels like it's getting worse as time goes on. But I think having been an athlete and having kind of always just had something nagging, you just deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just kind of deal with it and push through. I feel like every prep I've had some kind of thing happen to me, physically during it. It's just like, what are you going to do? Are you going to pack it in, or are you just going to suck it up and go through? And, I've
Yep.
always just kind of chose to suck up and go through. Even right now, I just had an MRI last week. I have a torn labrum, my biceps tearing.
Oh,
Um,
geez.
and it's just like, well, what do I go back Wednesday, and it's most likely that I'm just going to say, hey, we're just going to put this off until until it goes, or until we call it a career. Because like I said, I can see the end is in sight. I mean, I'm 40, but it would be 48 next month.
Okay.
I do not want to do this any more than probably the next 2 years.
Yep.
So it's kind of like, I definitely see that window closing. So it's like, we just got to get through it.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously you've got a little guy that I'm sure it takes a lot of time. You want to throw him around and pick him up and
Oh,
whatnot.
yeah,
So
you still want to be able to, run around and, just pick up with them, especially when they're, getting into sports and all that stuff. And,
yep.
even my oldest, we're both still active. One plays college soccer. The other one's going to be going to play college football in the fall. So,
Oh, wow.
they're very, very active family. So yeah, I try my best to keep up.
I love it. Let's talk a little bit about the gym. I heard on another podcast that you have a very successful gym in Connecticut, but did I hear right that you originally opened it up with some buddies as kind of like your own playground, like to be your own?
So that's what the intention was. So I lived on the other side of Connecticut for majority of my time in Connecticut. And
Okay.
I was blessed to have my home gym for 18 years be Montanari's Powerhouse Super Gym.
I keep hearing, I gotta go. We keep talking about Montanari.
Yeah, it's a great gym, great equipment, great environment, massive. I mean, it just, and especially back in the day, back then you had Evan Centopani training there every day. You had all the best pros were in and out of there. I met Kai there, Big Ramy. I mean,
Oh, wow.
you name it, everybody was coming through there. So when I moved on this side of Connecticut, I'm about an hour and 15 away from the New Haven gym. There was just nothing out here this way at all.
Yeah.
It was more just fitness centers. So I had started on a whim, just, there was a gym up in Worcester, Mass that went out of business. And I went to the auction and picked up maybe a dozen pieces or so that were supposed to just be kind of for the house in the basement
Yeah.
garage gym. And then I kind of just started picking up more pieces to the point I was overflowing. And to the point I couldn't even use most of the equipment because it was too packed in the garage in the basement. So my plan was, like you said, just to find a space to get this, all this stuff in, maybe pick up some more stuff, and maybe have like 20 guys or so
Yeah.
chip in. We all kind of just pay the monthly bill, and we have a place to train on some, more old school, heavier equipment.
Yeah.
I actually had belonged to a gym years ago that we did that. There was probably about 20, 25 guys, and it was just a
Okay.
small little gym, really just the essentials, but it was more of like a powerlifting gym. But yeah, it worked out nice, but I just couldn't find the space that would fit that. Either it was
Yeah.
too small, or, what I found now, which is just too big. And the space I found now is like, oh, this is a really good deal. But it's too big for what, for that vision. So it's like, well, if we go this route, we're going to have a, an open public gym, or and it was just kind of like, well, let's just do it. Let's just pull the trigger and let's make this happen. So yeah, I signed that lease, and it took me about 3 or 4 months to kind of build it out, open it up, get some more equipment in there to at least have the bare minimum to open a gym and start a gym.
Yep.
It definitely has evolved. We'll be 4 years next month.
Wow. Okay.
And it's definitely evolved a ton. We probably have doubled the amount of equipment in there. We've actually expanded a little in terms of square footage since that time. It's definitely becoming, pretty successful gym in a gym that's definitely it's geared towards bodybuilding. We have some powerlifting aspects to it too.
Yep.
But we definitely, if you're in the area and you want to compete in bodybuilding, it's definitely, a gym in which it kind of fosters a lot of competitors. We have a lot of people, a lot of young kids too, that never have maybe even had visions of competing, but they're seeing all these other people there.
Sure.
All the pictures on the wall of people that are competing and hearing about it. And we just built a posing room last December, and
Love it.
so it's kind of fostering that, which is great because that's really what I wanted. Because that's what the powerhouse in New Haven did for me. It kind of opened my eyes to, hey, there's a platform out there. There's a competitive platform, which I didn't really know was an option maybe. And you go there and you see all the pictures on the wall, you see all these people competing, you see the process, you learn, you're able to pick so many people's brains and just being around like-minded people. So it's been great in that aspect.
And pictures are great. It's not a pretty boy gym, and no disrespect to those type of gyms. I see like some older equipment, some newer equipment. It's just a good kind of, I guess, influx of a little bit of everything.
Yeah. We definitely geared towards the older, heavier equipment is kind of what I grew up on and kind of what I've found has tried and true and what works.
Yep.
We're definitely not that kind of gym. You're gonna, we're just gonna buy a kit and it's all gonna be, 40 pieces of one brand and this and that. It's all handpicked, mixed or matched. Nothing's gonna look the same.
Yep.
Some of it might be a little slightly beat up looking, but it all functions perfectly.
That's it.
It's all been kind of one-offs too. And the good thing too is, I've been around for a while now. It's got about 30 years doing this. And I kind of, for at least from a bodybuilding standpoint, kind of know, the machines that I feel work and the ones that don't.
Definitely.
So I've kind of tried to identify and find those machines and bring them in one by one.
Yep. I love it. And respectively, I call it kind of like a Frankenstein gym. I have a good friend that owns a gym, Apollo Gym in New Jersey.
Oh yeah. No, I've been there.
I call it a Frankenstein gym. It's all great equipment, mix and match. I mean, you might find, again, it's everything and anything you need.
Yeah. And I just feel like a lot of that. I mean, there's some newer things out there. Don't get me wrong, that are great. But for overall, I find like even with these newer lines, whether it be Arsenal, Panada, they may have one or two pieces that, hey, that's a pretty good piece. But some of the other ones, I'm just like, damn, they don't hit right. Something's not right. So it definitely is it's not the name, it's not the brand, it's not the look of it. It really just got the feel. And sometimes you got to kind of play around with that over the years to figure out which one hits, which one doesn't. Even these people that are making replicas, they look the same, but you go and try it, and you're like, it's just a little off. It's just a little different, strength curves. This doesn't feel right.
I love the advancement of technology, but I also feel sometimes it's getting too far over. Like Panada, everyone talks Panada. I've never tried it, but I heard nothing but great things. But it's like, okay, listen, use this machine because it binge at 90 degrees. It's going to strictly isolate the lateral delt versus, something 30 years ago where it's okay, just do your raises and everything else.
No, it's amazing. I mean, for the most part, most of the 1970s Nautilus is still some of the best pieces that have ever been made. It's crazy.
With the chains on them and everything.
Yeah. With all the advancements of technology and this and that, it's like, I don't know how he did it, but everything just seems to hit pretty right.
Yep. Jay, as we come full circle here, and I know we've shared a little bit between our DMs here, is there a show on this year's horizon, or are we looking at 26, or have you thought that far?
So the plan is to try to do, again, as we talked earlier, the classic physique, masters, and I'm going to try to do I've identified the Oklahoma Pro at the first week in June. It's only classic it's a pro-am show. It's the only pro show that the pro category they have at the show is classic and masters. So I'm going to plan on doing 40 and 45. They have both categories. Obviously everyone knows that if you can win a 40 show, that you can, get to the masters, Olympia, which I know anyone in my shoes, has on their radar, whether realistic or not, we all have it in the back of our head. So, that's why I'll try the 40 and 45 as opposed to just doing 45.
Okay.
and just kind of see what happens. Like I said, and again, keeping things realistic. I don't know what to expect because, again, every time I kind of leap into that next category of show, I find it to be a learning experience that you almost have to kind of go through it once, learn it, and then maybe come back around the next time and master it. But yeah, hoping for the best. And like I said, classic, I got a lot to work on. Definitely on the posing side, it's definitely a different animal.
What made you choose Oklahoma?
Just the timing of it. It
Okay.
really was about it. I have a family trip coming up at the end of June. Don't want to be prepping for a later show.
Sure.
Where my family is going away for our first time ever. We're going to Italy as an extended family, about 15 of us. So I don't want to be prepping during that. I wanted to get something in before that, and also have enough time, to kind of get some growth in, get some health phase in, get some growth phase in before I went into a prep. So really, it was just the timing of it worked out.
Okay.
I kind of would have liked to potentially have done a different show. Toronto is that same weekend. If it was closer or it was a little more manageable, I might have also thought about that one. And the only reason is because I think it'd be fun to, like you said, to say, hey, I was at a show with, hey, X, Y, and Z. They were on stage too. So at this show, I'm not going to be able to experience that aspect of it versus seeing some of these, big names, in the open or whatnot at like a Toronto show. But this one kind of, I think, just logistically, timing wise, is all going to kind of work out best. And maybe the fact that it's a smaller show, maybe it's a little more realistic too. Good way to kind of dip my toe into the water. Maybe.
I think it's smart. What modifications are you making? From obviously to the universe till your next show. Anything specific or overall or what?
Yeah, definitely just trying to put on a little size. I went a little heavier body weight wise than I've ever gone before. This time around, I definitely obviously feel like I'll need to be a fuller, bigger size.
Okay.
I think one thing that's going to be interesting in this prep that's always been different from every other prep I've ever done is every other prep I've ever done, I've had a number to shoot for, 176.25.
Yeah. Okay.
And everything was gauged by that number. We're on track. We're on track for that number. We're on track for that number. Yeah. And now that number doesn't exist for me. I think my cap is something crazy, like 197. Which I'll never step on stage at.
Yeah.
So not having a number is going to be interesting, and kind of having to go by the mirror for more so. But again, I think I'll be able to bring should be able to bring a little fuller look.
Right.
I've kind of always felt, leading into these other preps, when I was around that 185, 182 number, I looked pretty good.
Yep.
And then I had to kind of suck down, and then I get, might probably lose a little pop, understandably a little muscle. I'm sacrificing 5-10 pounds of muscle getting down to those numbers. So if I, my goal or my thought is if I can come in that low 180, 182 number, that maybe I'll have a better look or a fuller look, or a little more pop to it. Which obviously on a pro level stage, I'll need against those guys, with obviously that balance of conditioning as well.
It's a good point you make too, because I call it like the Derek Lunsford syndrome, where he was confined to the 212, and then when those handcuffs are off, it's like, now look.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I definitely, like I said, I've always sacrificed some size to make a weight class. But it did, in one sense, it did make it a little easier because it was scale driven. The whole prep was, methodical and numbers driven, and looking at a scale every morning. And now it's going to be a little more mirror looking, which, especially during a prep, your eyes can play a lot of tricks on you. So it's going to be, and I self prep too. So it's definitely, makes it a little harder too when you're your own worst critic and and you're judging everything off the mirror. So
it's funny you mentioned the Masters Olympia. Just before you and I jumped on here, it came across my phone here, like the drop dead date to actually apply for an invite is like the 31st of March, I think, or something. It's this month. It's coming fast versus competing and getting the entry via competition.
Yeah. I think the entry cutoff is like, I think it's shortly after my show. So that's why I'm thinking that my show might be pretty competitive, because it is one of the later ones and one of the last chances. So I do have a feeling you're going to have a lot of people that are, you may have done 1 or 2 shows earlier in the season and didn't get that qualification that are going to be, hoping for it at this one of these last few shows that I'm going to be jumping in. So
Jay, as I mentioned earlier, I think you're a realist, and I mean that respectively. Let's be positive. Let's be the optimist here. You win the show, okay? Oklahoma. Would you go to Tokyo?
Oh, we'll figure it out. I mean, yeah, the answer is yes. I mean, we'll make it happen. How I'm going to make it happen, I'm not sure. That's a quick turnaround. I think it's only about a month later.
August, yeah. I think the end of August the show is in Tokyo. Yeah.
I think like the first or second weekend in August, and I've never been over there, and I don't even, it's got to be pretty interesting and hard to prep traveling all that distance too, and trying to pick up on and do a carb load and all that stuff in another country. I mean, that's got to be pretty challenging in itself. But if I'm blessed to have the opportunity to, we'll make it happen.
I have a friend that did the one in Romania 23, and I think he went a week and a half earlier.
Oh wow!
Just to get everything, but all the competitors I know that went over there was like at least a week to 10 days just to acclimate and get everything else ready.
Yeah, no, I'm sure just the language barrier and trying to figure out how to, where to get your groceries and everything you need. It's got to be interesting. So, but yeah, no, if like I said, if I have that opportunity, it's definitely most likely a once in a lifetime opportunity. So yeah, definitely not going to pass that up.
Love it. Jay, as we wind down, is there anything maybe we haven't tackled that you want to let the listeners know about yourself? Or it's been an absolute honor and pleasure, and I appreciate it.
Oh, likewise. No. I just, like I said, I'm just, obviously very grateful to have the opportunity, the platform, and anything that bodybuilding has given me so much and done so much for me and filled so much of a, lack of a better word, void over the past 20 years with the subtraction of sports, and it's just been such a positive thing for me, mentally, everything. It's, again, another reason why I opened the gym is in order to, I had that afforded to me by, gyms I've been a part of, like I said, especially at the Powerhouse down in New Haven, and just to be able to try to pass that on to other people, promote the sport as a, more, it's been I'm a very regimented person, and, in the lifestyle in general, just the bodybuilding lifestyle in general has kind of been great for me. Just to be able to kind of, I kind of say you kind of live my life 3 hours at a time till the next meal. And everything's kind of like, it's kind of planned like that and very regimented, and kind of just, it keeps me, in line. It keeps everything, the day going. It keeps everything very structured. And I thrive under some kind of structure. So it's given me a lot of things, and just, it's taken me so many places, given me, I've gotten so much from it, and anything I can do to give back to it, I definitely, I try my best to.
Jay, what's the address for the gym? If people watching this or in the area?
Yeah, so the address is 39 Wedgwood Drive in Jewett City. It's a small little town in Connecticut. Most people know it because we're about 10, 15 minutes away from Foxwoods Casino. So it's more of a, a landmark that people know, kind of in the quiet corner of Connecticut. But we're close to, we're close to Mass. We're close to the Rhode Island border, like 10 minutes from Rhode Island, probably 30 minutes from Mass. So, we're in a good little spot, and we get a lot of people that travel. Definitely becoming a nice little destination gym for people on weekends. I'm a big proponent of trying of different gyms.
Same.
I don't know if you saw my Instagram. I try, my wife and I, we try to travel to as many gyms as often as we can, just to break up, just to break up the monotony, just to try different places. As being a gym owner, like I said, I don't bring a piece into my gym now that I haven't used before. So I go traveling around to other gyms just to try out some equipment, to say, hey, is this one good? Is this one not good? We learned a lot that way. We just got back from Kissimmee Muscle 2 weeks ago. We went down there and tried that, a couple of things out down there. It's just, I always just say, just supporting the gym community and then these kind of more hardcore, bodybuilding gyms. I always tell all my members, you got to go try New Haven. You got to go try this place. You should go try this. If you're traveling, I'm always trying to say, hey, go check this place out on your vacation. Because it's fun too, and just to kind of see different environments and in some aspects too, sometimes, wow, this is great. You got a great idea. And other aspects, you're like, hey, wow, that place isn't that great. We got a pretty good thing going here. You know what I mean? It kind of sometimes it makes you appreciate what you do have, depending on where you're at. But
perfect. And I'm looking at Instagram here Monday through Friday, 5 to 9, Saturday, Sunday, 8 to 5.
Correct. Yep.
Perfect. Perfect. And Jay, what's the Instagram handle for the gym, or people want to learn more about you or the gym, whatever it is?
Yeah, so on Instagram, we're at CT Barbell Gym. And yeah,
Perfect.
we're pretty interactive there with ourselves and our members. And like I said, we definitely, definitely it's a growing gym. We definitely got a lot of people coming as a destination now too. We got a lot of weekend people coming from out of state just to kind of, check it out, hit a body part. A lot of people come just to our gym just for legs, on the
Yep.
weekends, just because of the variety that we have. We built that posing room recently. That's been very popular. One thing. I've been in other gyms with posing rooms that are basically just a room with a mirror.
Yeah. Yeah.
And being a bodybuilder, I kind of, have to kind of know what it is that you need and want. So we kind of have the ability to kind of get rid of some mirrors if you want, with automatic shades. We have, back mirrors slanted up top, fixed up top for you. So
Oh, nice.
So we definitely made it more, again, geared towards the competitor, put down some hardwood floors for the females that want to, pose in heels and practice their walking. So we, definitely try to think of everything. And I think that a lot of people do appreciate that when they come to the gym, having someone that kind of has been in the game, quote unquote, for a little while. I kind of understand like what people want and need from the bodybuilding aspect. And being around, going around to a lot of gyms, you kind of pick and choose pieces of, hey, that was great, I loved that, or hey, that that wasn't so great here. Let's make sure we do something different on our end.
And Jay, how many square feet, or how big is the gym roughly?
So we're about 8,000 square feet right now.
Nice.
And continue to hopefully expand. We're looking to expand maybe another 1,000 square feet if I can grab shortly. And in time, there's another 4,000 that I'm looking to grab as well. It's a little bigger, obviously, of an expansion, so a little more involved in that one. But we're definitely growing. We're actually, to be honest, we're bursting at the seams. We have equipment in the lobby right now. People training in the lobby at the moment because equipment's overflowing. But you can never have too much. No one seems to complain about having too much.
I feel like at least once a week there's an update of come see the new addition to the gym. Yeah. I feel like at least once or twice a week got some new toy in there.
Yeah, and then I run out of room, and then I can't, and then and if I can't buy gym equipment, I don't know what to do with myself. So I got to keep expanding. So it's a problem, but it's a good problem.
Love it. Jay, again, it's truly been a pleasure. I mean, I'm an hour away. I keep talking. I need to finally take a trip out there to check it out. Because like you said, I like to bop around to the different gyms and, get the vibes, get the energy, and obviously meet good people like yourself.
No, anytime. Absolutely. Always welcome. Of course.
And I appreciate that. Everybody that's watching, again, make sure you follow CT Barbell Gym on Instagram, and also follow me, SupTalk_radio. Have a great rest of the week. And Jay, thank you again.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.